Good evening, everybody. Hopefully tonight finds you well. Hopefully you're out there finding things that you're curious about or thinking about or whatever. Either way, you're going to come across things online that you decide you want to either incorporate into a project or you want to just make them because they're awesome or would meet some need or whatever. For example, I'm thinking about these chairs, these nice little chairs, mostly to test out the capability of the machine because I'm still in that phase, but whatever. That chair looks pretty neat, and another interesting thing about it is it's made out of a single cut from a single piece of plywood. So this kind of fits the bill on whether or not or is a good testing mechanism. So I'm going to go ahead and use this as a test. But I'm also going to test something else. You see, whenever you find things online, you'll a lot of times find drawing files for them or Gcode files. Drawing files, a lot of times you'll see this DXF, which is a drawing file. Your CAD program should open that. Or SVG, where is that? Yep, there we go. Basically, that's a vector graphic that is very useful for us when we are drafting things and when we are adapting things for manufacturing. So what we're going to do right now is, since I found this Gcode, and Gcode is what we need for the Maslow, I'm going to go ahead and test it, and I'm going to show you how to test it. What you need to do is you just need an internet browser. There's nothing to download. And you need to go to NC Viewer. Should be the first one that pops up. Yep, there we go. What this does is it views Gcode, and this is actually a learning tool that will help you learn how to read and write Gcode if that's something that you're interested in. There are advantages to being able to do that if you're going to be doing this professionally. What we're going to be doing, first off, getting back to my Gcode files, obviously, spoiler alert, see, I had to adapt it, so it's not going to work. But either way, let's just go ahead and look at this thing for a minute, okay? So at first, when you're looking at it, if you've got multiple parts, and even if you don't have multiple parts, you should be looking for these little upticks at the bottom row. What these are called are tabs. Now, a tab is a little piece of leftover wood that the router does not cut out. What'll happen is, just to zoom in on a section, the router will come along, and when it gets to that location, it'll rise up on the z-axis, travel horizontally, lower back down to the depth that it's supposed to cut, and then continue on its merry way. What this does for us is it allows us to not have projects fall out. Okay? You have to keep in mind that this Maslow cutter keeps our plywood, our base, up at an almost vertical angle. So if you don't have tabs to hold the things in place, your item is going to fall. So like these two bat symbols were supposed to be the same size. However, for some reason, this one, the z-axis, went haywire on it and cut through all the tabs, so it fell out. Now, since it was a small enough project, the router was able to just kind of bounce it and chew on this lower side, and then consequently on this upper side. I don't know why or how or whatever. That's what ended up happening. And it just kind of kept on gnawing on them. It wasn't, because there's no sensors on this to find out, did your piece move? Is the router doing what it's supposed to do? Is it at the right depth? It's just going regardless of what it's cutting into. So when you lose all your tabs, your project falls, you lose your project essentially. Okay? So we want tabs. Another thing to note, the only thing I've found so far that's really useful for being able to read Gcode is to find out the position in the z-axis. So like where it says G1Z is negative 0.1, that means that it's going to be setting the router's position at this x and y coordinate, 17 inches over x, 12 inches up Y to negative 0.1. And then when I look down here further, the next z-axis instruction, it skips all of these pieces for z-axis instruction. Basically, what it's doing is it's giving all of these coordinates for where the router is supposed to move to go through the entire circle here. And then when it gets back to this location, go to the next z-axis, go around, drop and drop and drop, okay? Now it's down to 0.2 inches, okay? The Maslow needs to drop by about 1 millimeter. So since it's lowering by 1/10 of an inch each time, that means that it's lowering by 2.5 millimeters per pass. That's not going to work out well for us, so that needs to be changed. Therefore, this G-code will not work. Okay, we would not have known this until we had tested it, and what we would have done was we would have experienced a failed print and possibly damaged the equipment. We want to avoid that. Now, other CNC mills, they will work on that. Others are more powerful, more advanced. They have safety mechanisms in play to make sure that they are moving the way that they are supposed to. So if we happen to get one of those, or if you're using one of those, this may not be an issue for you. Now, in order to change your G-code, I'm sure that in this, there's a way to do it. I don't know that way. Additionally, I'm a big fan of making sure that machines can do it for us. So I'm going to show you a couple of programs that will work with G-code. Okay. The first program we're going to talk about is called MakerCam. Now, when you go to MakerCam, that little thing that popped up for a moment, since I've been at this site before, I've already got Flash enabled on this computer. If you don't have Flash enabled, you need to get Flash enabled, otherwise this won't work. This is like a very light CAD program. It will allow you to do some manipulations. It'll let you draw on things. It'll let you insert circles and rectangles and stuff like that. If you're drafting something in this program, you are wrong. The tools that you have in Inventor are much more powerful than this thing, and you should definitely be using those instead. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be opening an SVG file, because you remember how we had our G-code files? Well, one of the reasons I was looking through here was because I saw all these SVGs. So coincidentally, there's one called MakerCam project here because this person used this program. So we're going to go ahead and open this one. And boom, there is a successful cut. Now the main thing that you're going to get out of this is tool paths. Okay? The reason I selected theirs instead of making a fresh one was because they have already selected all their tool paths. Okay? So they made these tool paths, and all we had to do was adapt them slightly in order to actually work. Okay? Now, the way that we would adapt our tool paths, you click on it, and it brings this up. Okay? Now, first off, our plywood is not 0.8 inches deep. It is 0.75, so to give us a little bit of safety, I'm just going to say 0.76. We want it to be inside. Our safety height, that's going to be 3 millimeters. So that safety height is roughly 0.1 inches. Our stock surface is the surface of the material, so that should always be at 0. And our step down, this is the big thing. We need to make sure our step down is 0.04. Now I realize that that's not very much stepping down per pass, but I would rather not have to deal with, a broken piece of equipment versus slowing it down and stepping down not as much. So our feed rate is going to be at 20, and then our plunge rate will be 10, and direction counterclockwise will work just fine. And now we're going to say OK, and it will save that. Whoa. Yeah, okay, good. one of the things that you need to understand about MakerCam is that it's pretty wonky at times. Okay, so although it works well for this, it's not my preferred tool. We will get to HSM Inventor once the time becomes necessary. This person, their machine must have been extremely powerful. Let's see here, tool diameter, yep, that's our quarter. Safety height, step down. Okay, so we're just going to change all of these things. 0.76, 0.1, 04, 20, 10. Okay. Number 3, number 4. And then our last tool path. Okay, now this speed, or these speeds that I've set this thing up at, may seem a bit slow, but I would rather be a little bit more cautious with this equipment than just running through as fast as it says that it can. Now, what we need to do from here is we need to make sure that we've got some tabs. Okay, so I'm going to highlight the whole thing, and I'm going to say cam calculate all. It's processing, so this is where it was actually establishing the G-code. And now I'm going to go cam add tabs. Now your tab spacing, they say 5, I'm going to go with 10. And your tab width should be at least twice the size of your bit. I'm going to go with 3 times the size simply because I've had so many problems. And the tab height, 0.25 inches, I think that that's thick enough. Now you see all these little blue things that are around here? That's your tab. Okay. Now, what I would strongly recommend you do is you take a look at the placements of your tabs. You see how that one's in a curve? It's going to be really tough to cut that one out of there. Okay, so I suggest you either eliminate any of them in curves or move them to where they are not in a curve. So for this case, let's see here. I'm just going to delete that one. Yeah, you're not going to let me this time. Hello. Okay, well at least I'm going to move it away from where it's in a curve. So you just want to set these up so that way they're going to hold your plywood solid. Because if they don't hold the plywood solid, or if they don't have make sure that they glow blue before you move them. And to move it around, you need to use the hand tool. It's not a very smart program. All right. Actually, I want to move that one over there. Okay, so that looks good to me. The tabs are all over the place. So what we're going to be doing is going and saying, well, we need to select the whole thing again. calculate all, and now we want to export the Gcode. You want all of these profiles, and this is where you could actually manipulate them, move them farther up or down. You want to make sure that you're working from the inside of your project out. And it looks good, so we're going to just select all, export it, and then it's going to ask you where you want this thing to go. Well, my other chair. I want this to go into not the drawing files, but into the Gcode files. Save. Okay. Now, this is the program. Well, first off, we should go ahead and load this. No, I don't want to save anything. We should go ahead and load this program into here and look at what it does. Okay. Now, you see how these are all so close together and these are far away? That tells me we missed one. So, this one I'm not going to print, but I'm also not going to go back and fix. Well, I guess I can. Cancel, toolpath, center. Yep, step down, 0.04. Okie dokie. Now that we've gone back and fixed that, calculate all, export Gcode, all of it. Yep. My other chair 2. Save. All right. Now let's open that one. My other chair 2. Cool. Check it. All right. Very nice. We've got all of our tabs. They're all in the right locations. Cool. That means that we can go ahead and import this into our ground control software. Now, ground control, if you haven't used this, you should watch the tutorials on it, because this is not going to be a good tutorial on that. But you just simply open the file, wherever it happens to be. Where'd it go? There we go. My other chair 2. There it is. Now, another thing that you should check out to make sure that you have your tabs. When you've got this thing in here, look for these red and green dots. What the red and green dots tell you about is that there is a place where the z-axis location changes. It plunges down and it rises back up. You want to make sure that these are around your project, because even if they showed up in other things, this is where you want to make sure that they actually show up. So if you want to look at it, our device goes this way, that way, drops down, and then starts to go all the way around this thing over and over again. Okay, so I hope you got something out of this video that you're able to use. Good luck.